Welcome to another edition of Tuscaloosa Talks. This is kind of the Show Me podcast.
Yes.
Being a Missourian.
I love this.
Is it Missourian?
I think so. Missourian. It depends on who you ask and what part of the state you're from, I think.
Okay, so let's start there. You're from Missouri, and you're a proud Missouri native.
I am, yes.
Very proud, and you brag on it a lot, being a Missouri native.
Yes.
So how'd you end up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama?
A random job application. Legitimately, after I finished my master's degree from the University of Kansas, I was applying for jobs here, there, and everywhere. And I saw a job opening pop up for Tuscaloosa as a planner responsible for the historic districts. And I threw some spaghetti at the wall. It was supposed to be a phone interview, and I was doing wildland fire training.
Okay.
And so I was sitting, messy bun, fleece jacket on, and my phone starts making a noise I had never heard before. And it was Skype. And it was HR. And I was just like, man, there goes that job. And somehow, through luck and grace, I ended up here in March of 2013.
Who'd you end up interviewing with?
I interviewed with Philip O'Leary and Stacey Browning.
How about that?
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Well, and you came, I guess, right after we were in the midst of rebuilding after the tornado.
Yes, and I had never been to Tuscaloosa before I showed up here. And so when we moved me down here, I remember looking around and just going, this is going to be fine. And it has been.
I imagine there's a lot of similarities between Tuscaloosa and Lawrence, Kansas.
I think so when it comes to...
I've been to Lawrence, Kansas one time, and it was just for a few hours, but for a football game, but that was it. But, I mean, university cities, are there any similarities, or am I just trying to pull something out of my hat?
No, I don't think you are. I think, the fact that the university is such a major part of Lawrence, Kansas, and Alabama, or Tuscaloosa as well, and it's in the heart of the city as well, and they bleed into each other. I think there's some real similarities there.
Are you and Kelsey Rush able to coexist with her being KSU and you being a Rock Chalk Jayhawk?
So my mom is a K-Stater as well, as are my cousins, so we can all exist together.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, Kelsey and I get along great.
Okay, just making sure.
Small girls have to stick together.
I didn't know if, Dr. Rush was able to speak to you or not, or what the whole...
It depends on the day, honestly.
Okay, I understand. It's the same with me, too. Sometimes he just doesn't want to talk to me either because I create so much work for him. I always tell him Lisa's job security, right?
100%.
So you found your way to Tuscaloosa, and, you've moved your way up the ladder, had a very successful career here. Being in a department head of a very large department, first let's start there. Tell people about urban development. What do you do in urban development? It sounds like a fancy name, but you really do a lot that impacts people across Tuscaloosa.
100%. I mean, I always tell folks we're responsible for the built environment of Tuscaloosa. So any project that happens, any idea that somebody has, we are often the place where people start. And I'm very proud of the fact that urban development is the place where when somebody says, I want to build this, who can I call? Well, I know the planning office, or I know somebody in urban development. I'm going to call them and just see where to start. And I'm so proud of that piece and the customer service that our department provides. But we do everything from building and inspections, planning and urban design, special projects, and we do a little bit of code enforcement as well. And that's been a new addition to the UD realm in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So code enforcement, it's been probably, especially since we really added to the staff, I know it's put a lot of work on your team. Tell people a little bit about what code enforcement does, because it's getting a lot of positive reviews across Tuscaloosa.
My code enforcement team is fantastic. We've got a team of 12 total. So we've got a director, a manager, and then, we've got 10 total, not 12. Director, manager, and then 8 code enforcement officers. And they are responsible for the entire city, making sure that folks keep their grass cut, that trash gets picked up, that, if we start to see buildings in disrepair, we partner up with our property maintenance team. If there's an abandoned vehicle somewhere, that there's a banner, a sign that's not where it's supposed to be, that they go and take care of it. But it's not from an enforcement, like hard law side of things. It's hey friend, did you know that you can't have that out there? Did you know this might be broken? And so we use it as an educational tool. And of course, it does ramp up if folks are non-responsive or mean. But,
And there's a legal process too. It's just not as
100%.
simple as the city goes out there and says, hey, you need to remove that abandoned car. It's just not that simple.
No, it's never a snap of the finger. There's always a process to go through, and especially when there are zoning violations. The due process side of zoning violations often involves the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And so we have to be wary of that and encourage folks to come into compliance without having to go through those steps.
So what's been the biggest surprise to you leading the department? Your background was planning, but then you take over code enforcement, building and inspection. So you're taking over major disciplines within your department. What's been your biggest surprise?
I try not to be surprised. I felt like coming into this and growing up, for lack of a better term, through that office, I knew everybody and they knew me when I was a young pup around here. I think, honestly, it may be just the personnel side of things sometimes catches me off guard. And I'm like, all right, was not prepared for this today. And let's pivot and get it fixed.
Okay, so one of the big things your department has taken on is framework. So for the uninitiated, let me say, not the uninitiative, I don't even know if there is such a thing, but maybe there is. Huh?
We'll look it up later.
Yeah, it's a podcast. We'll just go with it. But for the uninitiated about framework, let's talk about first, what is framework and how long has it been going on?
Framework was a process that the city undertook starting in 2017 when we sent a request for proposals out. We came under contract with a group, Planning Next, in 2018, and it was a process to update the city's comprehensive plan.
Now, why is that important?
We had not done a true comprehensive plan for the city of Tuscaloosa since the first zoning ordinance was adopted in 1972.
Yeah, the year I was born.
The year you were born. And I have stopped saying, gosh, it's so old every time.
Thank you. I
felt like that was growth.
Wasn't that a long time ago. But anyway, yes. But no, in all seriousness, it just shows my lifetime was the last time we really had done anything.
Yeah.
Now, why is updating a comprehensive plan so tough to do? Because clearly it is. That we wouldn't have waited 50 years to do.
Oh, exactly. I think as a city, we had done so many individual district plans, and we had focused on these individual portions of Tuscaloosa rather than looking at it comprehensively.
And the tornado zone.
The tornado zone. And so that was the closest thing we've gotten to a comprehensive plan was Tuscaloosa Forward, and nobody have a heart attack over that one right now. I know that's sometimes a dirty word, but framework took all of those plans and integrated them in together and updated them for good stewardship purposes. You know, there had been so many things that had happened since our 2009 land use plan. We saw rapid growth with the University of Alabama. We had the 2008 recession. We had the tornado.
Yeah.
And then we had the pandemic. And of course, we were midstream working on adopting framework when the pandemic hit, and we had to slam on the brakes and recalibrate how we involved the people of Tuscaloosa, because comprehensive plans work best and planning works best when the people of the city are involved. And that was one thing I was so proud of, is just the involvement that we had from the people of Tuscaloosa.
So, and by the way, I do agree the tornado experience and the master plan that came out of it, it taught us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It taught us a lot, and it certainly has been helping us in this process. So when you began engaging in framework, talk about the public process that's been out there, the transparency, the accountability.
Oh, yeah. So we started framework.tuscaloosa.com, your one-stop shop for all things framework. But, you know, and we laugh and we say it tongue-in-cheek, but the website that we've had throughout this process is live, and anything that comes out of framework goes on that website. But we had an open house meeting in November of 2018 after we started this process to get a feel for what the people of Tuscaloosa wanted and needed, where their priorities were. I think we had about 325 people at that open house meeting. It was phenomenal. And I know we then, a year later, in November of 2019, had our open house to show all the recommendations that came out of framework. We had over 450 individuals show up at that meeting as well. And they got to look at maps and point and touch and see and feel interact on iPads. And also, we found ways to interact with folks who couldn't quite make it in. And so when we had Framework adopted, we knew we weren't done at that point. The comprehensive plan was just one aspect of it. We then had to do the code update process because you can have a plan on a shelf and it just sits there. But we were fortunate enough that the council chose to fund the zoning ordinance update as well.
So now, when you come up with a comprehensive plan, does that mean it's etched in stone? It'll never change?
No, not at all.
Okay, because I think that's you get that a lot. Either you get concerns on one side that you do this, we can't ever change, or you get concerned on the other side, oh, they'll change it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually a organic document.
Yeah.
As a former planning director, you say it's an ecosystem, right?
It's an ecosystem. It's an organic document. It's a policy guide that not just the planning office uses, but you've got the city engineer's office, economic development, planning, water and sewer. Everyone can use it for budget purposes, to decide where we grow, where we're going next, looking at annexation plans, things of that nature. So it's getting it out of it just being a planning office function is another thing I'm very proud of, that everyone in the city of Tuscaloosa can use it.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job leading it. So what's the next step procedurally? What should constituents and citizens be looking for in the coming months as it relates to Framework?
Absolutely. We are in the map review process for updating the zoning map. So we went through 2 steps on this. We've done the zoning text, and we took it one bite at a time because that's the best way to eat an elephant.
Yeah.
And we went through each individual zone, and we said, okay, here's the dimensional intensity standards, just the basics. Then we talked about things like parking requirements and material standards. And then we talked about use standards, what uses would be permitted in each zone. Mm-hmm. Once we got done with those 14 meetings, we have now moved into looking at changing the colors on the map. And that's what everyone has been just chomping at the bit, ready to do. We have divided the city up into 6 zones, 6 areas. Zone, we're not going to go there on right now, but 6 areas. We've done the North Tuscaloosa and Airport area. We've done the West Tuscaloosa area, and there are 4 meetings ahead of us. Downtown will be at the end of March. And basically, we are taking it parcel by parcel and making sure that using the future land use character map, using the existing zoning, using the existing land use, that we are able to assign the correct zone to that individual parcel.
Well, and I think the meetings that I've seen thus far is that the Planning Commission's listening,
Mm-hmm.
your team is listening, and when people come forward with great suggestions, they're being incorporated into the plan.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think what I would encourage everyone to do is look at it, especially look at your area, but look at the whole city. And if you've got an idea and you go, you know what, I think they've got this, but they ought to be thinking about that,
Mm-hmm.
we want to know. That's how we get better.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where, because it's all on the website, it's accessible on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer. If you wake up in the middle of the night because you've had a dream and you need to tell somebody about this specific piece of property and what you think it should be zoned, what better time to do it than right then when you're thinking about it, instead of having to wait to contact staff, because we're seeing those comments and we're reaching out to folks. When we see them come in, we're like, oh, we should get up with this individual and let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Or, thank them for providing the comment of support. And so I think that's been a really cool part of this process.
Well, I really appreciate the customer service of your team. I appreciate the job that you do. You've done an amazing job for the people of Tuscaloosa.
Thank you.
The city of Tuscaloosa is really fortunate to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
So if anyone has any questions about Framework, they want to reach out to you, what's your email address?
My email address is akrites, Krites, @Tuscaloosa.com. They can also go to framework.tuscaloosa.com.
And they can inquire and hopefully get involved.
100%.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Speaking of plans, I hope you've enjoyed our update on Framework, and this has been another edition of Tuscaloosa Talks.